So let's get set up. First, thanks again for your time and for your interest. Hopefully it'll imply some interesting discussion, and also you'll get to see a sneak peek into some of the cool things that we're building. There we go. I'm going to draw that here. Before we get started, though, I'd like to give you a little bit of context. We talked about a number of things that were, I guess, really interesting, poignant. The confluence of data and product. Product in this case might mean the editorial content you produce. It certainly means the product we make, of course. We have to listen to both you and active users. We also talked about affinity, social affinity, and the relationship between topics and how those matter and why they matter to produce a deep view of an individual. And that's really the core thing that we do, where most of our IP lies. It's in understanding people deeply. Now, of course, I'm supposed to say that, right, if I'm going to show you an audience intelligence platform. But it's not a throwaway line. It is critical to us to be able to understand each individual as much as we can, both from the micro perspective, that individual on the site, but also from a macro perspective. And so to be able to do that correctly, I want to give you a brief description of how we do that, so that some of these concepts maybe become clearer. So the first step for us is to understand the context within which people operate. And that's essentially the world, right? The things that you like, the brands that you like, the topics that you're interested in. And they mean nothing if they're just a label. They must be a set of relationships, one association to another with some weight and some direction. To be able to do that, we need some sets of sources that describe a broad part of the world. And for us, it's Wikipedia and Freebase and other sources, actually. And we haven't chosen them randomly or because of the volume or breadth, but also because of the fact that they remain constant. They are organic, they adapt. That matters a lot because if we want to make a map of the world to use to understand each individual, the map of the world has to remain relevant, right? It has to remain relevant whilst we're looking at the individuals over time. And so essentially we analyze link structure and text to form a very broad graph that describes each individual topic and its relationship to other topics. And we use that graph to analyze users. And why do we use that graph to analyze users? Because we want to extract as much value from both behavior, your offline data sets, and social data. And now we go into social data neatly. Why do we think social data matters? Why does it matter to collect 1% of your audience's social logins? Because we want to get two types and two levels of depth for each of your users, for as many of your users as we can. The first is a very detailed view on a single domain. If you have a site about cars, then I will likely learn what your users like in terms of cars, because they interact with different topics on your page that is about cars. But each of your users is a well-rounded person, ideally. They have hobbies and interests. They come from somewhere and have a football affiliation, despite the fact that they don't like the manager for the last 20 years. And we want to capture that, right? We want to use that because that's how we understand them broadly. That's how we are able to give you deep insight, not operational insight. And that takes us into, I think, what's really important about some of what we're trying to do, provide that reveal. I'm glad that Luca mentioned it. That reveal is key, and that reveal doesn't come from operational analytics. Operational analytics is the typical form of analytics that you're used to. It's the analytics that you use to ask a specific question that you had pre-planned, and that usually has an operational outcome like sending a bill or looking at the number of clicks for a particular campaign, and that's completely necessary. But to find the reveal, you need exploratory analytics. And exploratory analytics is really about navigating your data set, about finding new things that you weren't expecting, and that has two core dependencies. One, it must be easy to navigate your data set, or else you won't find new things. You'll find it cumbersome and drop it. And two, it must be done in such a way that it is not just intuitive, but becomes clearer over time. And that's the intention behind what we've done. So we'll take behavior data, your own data sets, social data, and start displaying some statements about your audience in general.